drink contaminated water. And unfortunately we have, but now we do have a choice in trying to monitor their health, and we should not be denied access to that. And we should, if anything, have more of a supportive process, because that's the least we can do for these families right now. So I don't want to monopolize the time. I just wanted you to know that that was really important. The other thing I want to say thank you to the Public Health Department. I recently read a letter that I believe Lisa Morris had signed on with several other state health departments throughout the country also battling this issue, and I'm appreciative of your efforts to encourage the CDC for their health studies, and that's amazing, and we need that, but also we need medical monitoring here too. So that's my input. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself and say where you're from.
Yes, my name is Michelle Dalton. I actually just moved from Dover to Durham. My family has been affected by the water contamination at the former Pease Air Force Base, and I speak today as a concerned mother and community member. I personally have been exposed to contaminated water since January of 2011 when I began working on Pease. My son, who is now 4, was exposed since the time he was conceived until 3 years old. And as you can suspect, both of our blood results show elevated levels of PFAS in our bodies. As any concerned mother would do, I brought my son and his results to his pediatrician to find out what we could do to monitor his health more closely. Nothing was the answer that I received. His physician and I continued to talk about the more probable than not health effects and the need to be proactive, not reactive in his health care. And this is what I was told, 3 important facts. 1, the annual exams that all of the children receive are sufficient enough to monitor his health. 2, the C8 health studies, recommendations, and the website need to be vetted to make sure that they were actually legit. And 3, their office has reviewed the recommendations and fact sheets from the New Hampshire DHHS, and they are going off of what they are recommending. So I'm sure you can understand my frustrations, and I am just one of the many parents out there that are receiving this message. My child is not like every other unexposed child, so why are the recommendations about his monitoring his health the same? Unfortunately for my provider, sufficient is not good enough for me or my son, and I want to know what I can do now. The C8 health studies and recommendations are of sound medical science, and in fact, just last week at the Pease CAP meeting, the director of ATSDR, Dr. Patrick Bricey, validated the C8 health studies, saying, "I assure you that it's not illegitimate," and this was in direct response to my son's pediatrician's comments. My real concern is that the New Hampshire guidelines and fact sheets are written in such a way that they are actually preventing parents like me from being proactive rather than helping us. We didn't ask to be put in this situation, we didn't ask to be contaminated, but the reality is that we are, and thousands of us are. And now when we are trying to deal with it, we are asking how we can monitor our health above and beyond the normal process, and we are being denied. And I feel that there's something wrong with that. In New Hampshire, we continue to give the chemical the benefit of the doubt, and it's simply not working anymore. Many communities are looking at New Hampshire as a leader, and we have the opportunity to be one and take medical monitoring seriously. We need to be proactive because, frankly, taking a reactive approach and the wait and see approach is really what got us in this mess in the first place. Thank you.
Dr. Sherman.
Just 1 sec. Oh, that was Andrea.
That was Michelle.
That was, no, the first person was Andrea. So, Michelle,
Yes.
you have written testimony? Can we have that, or would you rather? Because I can't write. That's okay. Well, you could send me an electronic version of it if that's okay, but I can't write that fast. I don't want to miss anything. And if it's okay with you, maybe you could put in there that you would like this included in the report.
Sure, absolutely.
So that would work for the public comment part 2. Part also. Who is?
Over there.
Oh, yes, Kim.
We may be experiencing technical difficulties, so although the microphones are on, this might not be being recorded
Okay.
or videotaped. So if anybody needs notes, don't rely on watching it on YouTube because we don't know how thorough it is. Someone's on their way to try to fix it.
Okay, thank you. Would anybody else from the public like to speak?
Hello, my name is Lindsay Carmichael. I'm a member of the Pease CAP, and I can keep this fairly short and sweet. I think both Andrea and Michelle did a great job. I think First, I'd like to say that my family was personally affected as well by the water contamination issues out at Pease. My son drank contaminated water for about 4 years. But I too have very strong feelings about the need for a medical monitoring recommendation. I think that it's the primary opportunity that we have for early detection. And one of the concerns that I have, in addition to Michelle's story where she was looking for medical monitoring but denied the opportunity, I think the fact that there isn't a recommendation means that we're missing some other families who might not be as active in this process as some of us in this room are. But if there was a recommendation for medical monitoring, those parents would be a little bit more plugged in, and I think that perhaps they would have the opportunity to engage their children in enhanced screening, which is vital in terms of identifying any possible adverse health effects related to the contaminated water that the kids have drank along with the adults. That's it.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
And you don't have to answer this.
Sure.
Have your levels, have your children's levels been checked? And
My son's levels were checked. He's 16 years old, so there was quite a gap between the time that exposure stopped and the time that his blood was tested. His
Okay.
levels are not elevated. However, as you know, it's hard to retroactively go back and understand what they were
right.
when he was 6 years old.
So he may have eliminated what he was
They did
exposed to.
some,
Right,
yeah.
some of it. Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Anyone else? Yeah.
Okay, so Jillian Lane, I'm actually going to read a letter on behalf of Elena Davis. So bear with me because I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to take care of that for her because she's not able to be here because of work obligations. So my name is Elena Davis, and as a Seacoast community member personally impacted by the PFAS water contamination at the Pease International Trade Port, I would like to offer my recommendations for the institution of a medical monitoring program for those impacted by PFAS chemicals in New Hampshire. I became actively involved in advocating for the Pease community after discovering that my young son was exposed to these emerging contaminants. I worked on Pease for several years and was pregnant while working there. And after my son was born, my husband and I enrolled him at daycare at just 12 weeks old. I have concerns about his health now and long term due to his exposure to these persistent bioaccumulative chemicals. My husband and I were devastated to see that after my son's after having my son's blood tested, that he has elevated levels of PFAS, the highest being PFHXS, which has a half-life of up to 9 years. A lot of time and thought went into who would care for our son, but we never thought that despite the many healthy choices we were making for his development, that he would be ingesting toxic chemicals while he was developing and growing every day. We have concerns about his health because the CDC states that, quote, children are especially vulnerable to environmental contaminants due to their rapid development during the fetal period through early childhood. Children continue to be vulnerable as they go through the developmental changes of puberty. Given my son's prenatal exposure, which continued until he was 5.5 years old, it could take decades for his body to begin eliminating these chemicals from his body. As I sit here with him at home, only 2 days after he started school, and he is sick on the couch with high fevers, headache, and vomiting, questions race through my mind yet again about whether his early exposure to PFAS during critical stages of his body's development has compromised his immune system. It is not unusual for him to catch the latest wave of germs and for his body to go through periods of 5 to 7 days of high fevers as he fights off a virus. When I have mentioned to other parents what his, quote, normal fever level is, they state that their children have never had a fever that high. Last year, he was out of school for a week and a half fighting off pneumonia. I share this with you because after we received my son's PFAS blood test results, I provided them to his doctor's office and requested to have a consultation with them about what we could do to regularly monitor his health for what is known about potential negative impacts from PFAS. As a result of my request to discuss my child's blood test results, I received a brief 5-minute phone call from one of his physicians where I was told that they would not do any additional monitoring because according to the New Hampshire DHHS, there is no medical indication to do so. Not me. Years prior to becoming pregnant, I began making careful choices about what I ate, drank, and used for personal care products. I educated families on what to avoid for common everyday environmental toxins. Yet without knowing it, I nursed him with contaminants, and later he drank contaminated water daily as he attended daycare. Superfund sites are in our backyards with documented releases of PFAS where our kids are playing. The EPA confirms that the, quote, developing fetus and newborn are particularly sensitive to PFOA and PFOS-induced toxicity. The National Toxicology Program concluded that there is strong evidence that both PFOS and PFOA are immune hazards to humans. Other evidence indicates that PFCs have negative effects on the body's endocrine system, the system that regulates our growth, development, and impacts almost every major function in our body. Studies were conducted of 69,000 people exposed to one PFOS, PFOA, for just 1 year at levels 7 times lower than what was found in the Haven well at Pease. For 6 disease categories, the science panel concluded that there was a probable link to C8, PFOA, exposure for high cholesterol, ulcerative colitis, thyroid disease, testicular cancer, kidney cancer, and pregnancy-induced hypertension. Through these studies, the researchers were able to establish a medical monitoring protocol for those who were exposed to PFOA. At Pease, my family was exposed to several types of PFAS, with research still emerging about how they may be very similar in regard to their health implications. Due to his exposure to PFAS occurring prenatally and beyond, the most harmful impacts of these contaminants could take years to show up, long after the exposures occurred. I would not wish the uncertainty and worry that I have experienced from finding out that my son was drinking contaminated water on any other family. I was unable to protect my child from the harmful impacts of drinking water on Pease, but I need to do what I can now to protect him and be proactive about monitoring his health. With a pediatric cancer cluster evident on the seacoast and other emerging cancers in this area, please consider families like mine when you consider the recommendations of establishing a medical monitoring protocol for those impacted by PFAS here in New Hampshire, and how important it is for our peace of mind. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments. Elena Davis, co-founder of Testing for Peas, and her son's sick, I guess. It's not work, it's her son's.
How about if anybody else wants to speak, you just come to the table.
Is there a switch on the side of that? Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Okay, thank you all so much, and please feel free to take that letter, any other comments, and you can send them to me, I think, if that's probably easiest, and we'll get them into the final report. Sure.
This is just for clarification. Andrea, I thought I understood you to say that services have been blocked for monitoring going forward. Yet I thought I understood you to say that your physician is doing monitoring. I'm wondering if the decision is by physician or what the decision is.
So yeah, just to clarify, there is no clear medical monitoring program right now. So when I said services are being blocked, certain families like Michelle and Elena are going to their doctors, and their doctors are saying we're not going to do any additional testing. But for me, my physician has been very supportive. So to be clear, because there's no clear protocol in place or medical monitoring tool, we're hearing from other families as well, and adults, that they cannot get additional testing. So just to clarify that piece. So it's per physician, you know, what each individual one is doing. And I think the other point I'd like to make is that oftentimes the patients are more of an expert on these PFCs than their physicians, because there's so many doctors that are, I don't even know what these chemicals are. I don't know what they do. I'll have to go back and research and get back to you. And often they look to the CDC and Department of Health and Human Services for guidance. And if their recommendations aren't clear or less minimizing what people should do, then the physicians are trusting that information. So we need to do a better job of educating the providers and putting something a little bit more streamlined in place. So thankfully I get monitoring for my kids, but 2 of my very good friends don't for their children, and that's a big problem that we definitely need to fix.
Can I ask one,
Yeah, sure.
again, this, you're welcome to say you don't want to answer, but what type of monitoring have you decided on with your pediatrician?
So he's done some lab work for me over the last, so we got high levels in 2015, so I had blood drawn on them in 2016 and 2017. And he has checked basically a CBC and a comprehensive metabolic panel. He's looking at, liver function, kidney function, and then also thyroid.
What about cholesterol?
And he did check cholesterol. The first time he did not. I didn't ask for cholesterol. The second time I did.
And
So-
are you also following blood levels of PFOA?
I am not, because I don't have the ability to retest my children. So the state right now offers blood testing for people once. We have asked about, some people that had really high levels, would you consider retesting them again? And we haven't asked that recently, but when we've asked in the past, they said we have the resources. We want to test everybody first, before we start testing people multiple times. But that would be definitely something I'd be interested in doing. I just don't have the mechanism through my pediatrician to test.
Do you know if those are commercially available?
That's a good question, and you're right. No, Andrew, we've discussed this in the past, but not recently. There are, at least as of like a year ago, there were 2 labs commercially available to people that wanted to get their blood tested. One lab was called NMS, National Medical. I can't remember the full name, but they only tested for PFOA. The other lab that was out there that we knew about was a lab called Vista Laboratories, which I know that the Department of Environmental Services uses for some of their water testing. So those 2 options were available, and we've made the contact information for those labs available online.
But
And-
you have to pay out of pocket, and the
That's
price,
correct.
I think, is upwards of
Like
$3,000.
$1,000.
Yes,
How much?
$1,000.
And
it varies by lab, but
1,300
yes.
is what I heard.
one last question. When you all do the testing, do you have a reference lab you send to, or how does that happen?
We do. We've had to set up contracts with a number of different laboratories. In the first round of testing back in 2015, when we were testing the PEAS population, we started off using the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention lab. They didn't have the capacity, so then we had to set up contracts with a lab called Axis, AXYS,